Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for being here today with me on Storytime 365. My name is Barbara and today I have the perfect story just in time for Halloween. The book is called Room on the Broom and I absolutely love this story because of its sweet rhyme. The book has been written by Julia Donaldson and it's illustrated by Axel Scheffler. The witch had a cat and a very tall hat and long ginger hair, which she wore in a plait. How the cat purred and how the witch grinned as they sat on their broomstick and flew through the wind. But how the witch wailed and how the cat spat when the wind blew so wildly it blew off the hat. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the hat, but no hat could be found. Then out of the bushes on thundering paws, there bounded a dog with the hat in his jaws. He dropped it politely, then eagerly said, as the witch pulled the hat firmly down on her head, "I am a dog as keen as can be. Is there room on the broom for a dog like me?" "Yes," cried the witch, and the dog clambered on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Over the fields and the forests they flew. The dog wagged his tail, and the stormy wind blew. The witch laughed aloud and held onto her hat, but away blew the bow from her long ginger plait. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the bow, but no bow could be found. Then out from a tree with an ear-splitting shriek, there flapped a green bird with the bow in her beak. She dropped it politely and bent her head low, then said, as the witch tied her plait in a bow, "I am a bird as green as can be. Is there room on the broom for a bird like me?" "Yes," cried the witch, so the bird fluttered on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Over the reeds and the rivers they flew. The bird shrieked with glee, and the stormy wind blew. They shot through the sky to the back of beyond. The witch clutched her bow, but let go of her wand. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the wand, but no wand could be found. Then all of a sudden, from out of a pond, leapt a dripping wet frog with a dripping wet wand. He dropped it politely, then said with a croak, as the witch dried the wand on a fold of her cloak, "I am a frog as clean as can be. Is there room on the broom for a frog like me?" "Yes," said the witch, so the frog bounded on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Over the moors and the mountains they flew. The frog jumped for joy, and the broom snapped in two. Down fell the cat and the dog and the frog. Down they went tumbling into a bog. The witch's half broomstick flew into a cloud, and the witch heard a roar that was scary and loud. "I am a dragon as mean as can be, and I'm planning to have witch and chips for my tea." "No," cried the witch, flying higher and higher. The dragon flew after her, breathing out fire. "Help!" cried the witch, flying down to the ground. She looked all around, but no help could be found. The dragon drew nearer and, licking his lips, said, "Maybe this once I'll have witch without chips." But just as he planned to begin on his feast, from out of a ditch rose a horrible beast. It was tall, dark, and sticky, and feathered and furred. It had 4 frightful heads. It had wings like a bird. And its terrible voice, when it started to speak, was a yowl and a growl, and a croak and a shriek. It dripped and it squelched as it strode from the ditch, and it said to the dragon, "Buzz off, that's my witch." The dragon drew back and he started to shake. "I'm sorry," he spluttered. "I made a mistake. It's nice to have met you, but now I must fly." And he spread out his wings and was off through the sky. Then down flew the bird and down jumped the frog. Down climbed the cat and "Phew," said the dog. And "Thank you, oh thank you," the grateful witch cried. "Without you, I'd be in that dragon's inside." Then she filled up her cauldron and said with a grin, "Find something, everyone, throw something in." So the frog found a lily, the cat found a cone, the bird found a twig, and the dog found a bone. They threw them all in, and the witch stirred them well. And while she was stirring, she muttered a spell. Iggity, ziggity, zaggity zoom. Then out rose a truly magnificent broom, with seats for the witch and the cat and the dog, a nest for the bird, and a shower for the frog. "Yes," cried the witch, and they all clambered on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Wonderful that you could be here today with me on Storytime 365. My name is Barbara, and with Halloween coming soon, today we begin our series of stories in preparation. The book for today is from the Berenstain Bears series and is called The Berenstain Bears Trick or Treat. This is a book that's been written and illustrated by Stan and Jan Berenstain. The sights and sounds of autumn were all around as Mama Bear pushed her shopping cart along the path that led to the Bear family's treehouse. The trees and shrubs were ablaze with color. Farmer Ben's pumpkin stood bright orange in the October sun. The crows cawed noisily as they searched the stubble for bits of corn. Wild geese in great V formations honked high in the sky as they flew south. But the surest sign of the season was inside the treehouse, hiding behind Papa Bear's easy chair. It was Brother Bear, waiting to try out his Halloween costume on Mama. It wasn't Halloween yet, but Brother and Sister couldn't wait to try on their new costumes. Sister was going to be a beautiful ballerina. "Well, what do you think?" she asked, taking the third position. "Shh," said Brother. "Mama's coming." Brother had chosen to be a spooky monster on Halloween. He had bought the spookiest monster mask he could find, and Mama made the rest of the costume. "Boo!" he shouted as Mama came in with the groceries. "Help! A monster!" she cried, pretending to be frightened. "It's only me, Mama," he said, showing his face. "So it is," said Mama. "Well, that just goes to show that appearances can be deceiving." "Appearances can be deceiving? What's that mean?" asked Sister. "It's just a grown-up way of saying that things aren't always what they look like," explained Mama as she unpacked the groceries. "Look, goodies," said Brother. "Hands off, please," said Mama. "Those are for trick-or-treaters who come to our house tomorrow night." Brother and Sister were very excited about Halloween and a little nervous too. This was the first year they would be going trick-or-treating without a grown-up along to supervise. "I'm not so sure I like the idea of them going by themselves," said Papa as he carved the pumpkin he got from Farmer Ben. "It's pretty spooky out there," he added, making a scary face at the cubs. "Now, Papa," said Mama, "if Brother and Sister want to accept the challenge of going out on their own, I think we should encourage them. But remember," she continued, turning to the cubs, "there will be strict rules. You'll stay in your own neighborhood and you won't eat any of the treats until you're back at home." "Besides," said Brother, "we won't really be by ourselves. We made a trick-or-treat date with Cousin Freddie, Lizzie Bruin, and Queenie McBear." "There," said Papa, putting the finishing touches on the jack-o'-lantern. Then he lit a candle inside and turned out all the lights. It was pretty scary. The next day, brother and sister began planning the trick-or-treat route they'd follow that night. Brother got a pencil and paper and made a map of the neighborhood. That way, he explained, they wouldn't miss anybody. Let's see now, he said. We'll stop at our houses first, ours, Freddie's, Lizzie's and Queenie's. Then we'll do Farmer Ben's and our sitter, Mrs. Grizzle. Mrs. Grizzle for sure, agreed sister. She usually makes special Halloween cookies. And Teacher Jane, she gives out good stuff. How about Dr. Grizzly? Asked brother. She's into health snacks. I think so, just to be polite, said sis. Gramps and Gran, of course. Of course. I'll tell you one place we are going to miss, said brother, folding his map. What place is that? Asked sister. That one, he answered, pointing out the window at the home of old Ms. McGriz. It was a spooky, twisted old treehouse in a thicket at the end of Crooked Lane. We're definitely not going there, he added with a shiver. Why ever not? Asked Mama, who was listening. Why not? Said the cubs. Because she's a witch, that's why not. What utter nonsense, protested Mama. True, Ms. McGriz is old and bent and rather forbidding looking, but I can assure you she's a perfectly nice person. But the cubs didn't believe her, not for a minute. They knew better. Everybody knew better. No doubt about it, Ms. McGriz was a witch for sure. Just after dark, a pirate, a skeleton, and the wicked queen from Snow White came for brother and sister. They were Freddie, Lizzie, and Queenie, of course, and together they ventured out into the darkness with their trick-or-treat bags. Before they could get started collecting Halloween goodies, they were joined by some worrisome company. Too Tall Grizzly and his gang out for mischief. Too Tall didn't waste any time trying to get brother, sister, and their friends to go along with him and his gang. Come on, we'll show you goody-goodies how to have some real Halloween fun, he said, pulling brother along with him. What sort of fun? Asked brother warily. Oh, you might say we're going to put the trick back in trick-or-treat, he said, chuckling. It was so dark that brother and the others didn't notice where they were heading. Hey, said sister, this is Crooked Lane. That's right, said Too Tall. We're going to play a few tricks on old Witch McGriz. What sort of tricks? Asked brother. Her gnarled, twisted old treehouse loomed ahead. First, whispered Too Tall, taking a roll of toilet paper from his jacket, we'll decorate her house with a little of this. Then, maybe we'll tie a few knots in her clothesline. Then smear some honey on her broomstick so she'll stick to it when she tries to fly. But before Too Tall and his gang could start their mischief, the front door opened and a bright yellow light stabbed the darkness. And there in the doorway stood the frightening figure of old Ms. McGriz. Aha, she said in a gravelly voice. I'm ready for you. She then led the terrified cubs into a cozy living room. To their great surprise, there was a big tray of beautiful candy apples, all prepared for Halloween visitors. Mama was right, whispered sister to brother. Ms. McGriz really is a sweet, kind old person. The cubs thanked her for the beautiful apples and went about the rest of their trick-or-treat business. Later that evening, brother and sister were at home looking over all the treats they had collected. The beautiful candy apples stood out, and Papa asked where they came from. From Ms. McGriz, answered brother. From that scary-looking old grouch puss that lives down Crooked Lane, said Papa. That's right, said brother, taking a delicious bite of his candy apple. You must really try to remember, Papa, said sister, giving her apple a little lick. Appearances can be quite deceiving. Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining me today on Storytime 365. It's lovely that you could be here. My name is Barbara and today I have another Halloween story from the Berenstain Bears series. This book is called The Berenstain Bears Big Halloween Party. This is a book that's been written by Mike Berenstain and it's based on the characters created by Stan and Jan Berenstain. It was autumn in Bear Country, and Halloween was on its way. This year, the whole neighborhood was getting together for a big Halloween party at the Bear family's treehouse. There would be a costume parade, games and refreshments, a costume contest, and trick-or-treating for all. Brother, sister, and Honey could hardly wait. The cubs were thinking about their costumes. I'm going to be a fire-breathing dragon, said Brother. I'm going to be a swan mutant superhero, said Sister. I'm going to be a big bug, said Honey proudly. A bug? asked Sister, surprised. Yes, said Honey, a ladybug. Oh, said Brother, that will be cute. Mama and Papa overheard the cubs. Excuse me, said Mama, where are these costumes coming from? The Halloween store, said Brother. I'm not sure the Halloween store has those costumes, said Papa. Perhaps you and Mama could help us make them, said Sister. Mama and Papa looked at each other and sighed. On Halloween Day, the cubs' costumes were ready. They were magnificent. The whole family had indeed worked on them together. The neighbors were decorating the treehouse and setting out games and refreshments. The neighborhood cubs were wildly excited. Said Papa, now we're going to fill them up with sugar and candy. The party began with a grand costume parade. The cubs were given all sorts of noisemakers, toy horns, cowbells, pot lids to bang on, or drums to whack. They set off on a tour of the neighborhood. Toot, bong, clang, womp, went the noisemakers. The cubs looked very nice in their costumes, and they had a wonderful time making all that noise. When the parade got back to the treehouse, everyone was hungry and thirsty. The parents doled out refreshments, and when everyone was refreshed, the games began. There was bobbing for apples. Little Billy Griswold lost a tooth biting into an apple. That's all right, he grinned. It was loose anyway. Papa supervised the beanbag toss. Hey, he said, as a cub accidentally bounced a beanbag off his head. Sorry, said the cub. Mama was in charge of face painting. She did a wonderful job. By the time she was done, the cubs' own parents didn't recognize them. Mr. and Mrs. Bruin ran the pin the bone on the skeleton game and the musical tombstones game. At the end, Lizzie Bruin and Cousin Fred both sat down on the last tombstone at exactly the same moment, so it was declared a tie. The other cubs happily ran circles around Lizzie and Fred. Next came the pumpkin piñata. Papa held it out on a long pole for the cubs to whack with a baseball bat while blindfolded. The first cub got a bit confused and whacked Papa. Ow! Yelled Papa. Eventually, someone took good aim and burst the pumpkin wide open. The cubs gathered up the scattered candy while poor Papa rubbed his leg. The party finished with a costume judging contest. The cubs got up one at a time to display their costumes while everyone applauded. Then prizes were awarded. There were lots of prizes. And for the witch with the straightest hat, said Mama, giving out a prize. And for the dinosaur with the sharpest horn, said Papa, giving out another prize. Soon all the cubs had prizes, and trick-or-treating could begin. It was getting dark, and the neighborhood was looking quite spooky. There were flickering lanterns along the street. Pumpkins glowed on every porch. There were fake skeletons, ghosts, ghouls, spiders, and monsters everywhere. The cubs set off. Parents went along with the little ones. They marched up to each front door and knocked. Some doors were old and creaky, and some houses had sound effects of shrieks and moans. It was pretty scary. But when the doors were opened, friendly neighbors were inside. "Trick or treat," the cubs cried, and held out bags and baskets for their treats. When the last candy bar had been gathered and the final lollipop selected, the cubs returned to the treehouse to count their loot. They arranged it in neat little piles. 15 bear nut bars, said brother. 17 grizzly pops, said sister. Lots of honey drops, said Honey, who couldn't count very well yet. It was getting late. The moon was rising as the families headed home. The littlest ones were fast asleep in their parents' arms. "Good night," called Mama, Papa, brother, sister, and Honey. "Happy Halloween." "And happy Halloween," the neighbors called back. A wonderful Halloween party had been had by all. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the story, The Berenstain Bears' Big Halloween Party. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you very soon for another story. Bye!